Good day, everyone. I hope you're enjoying VSM Conference 2022. My name is Rupert Field, and I'm going to be talking to you today about leading the exploration for value. I'm with the Value Stream Management Consortium, and so I'll talk quickly about what this is. Fundamentally, we're a member association for both enterprises and individuals, and our purpose is to advance value stream centric ways of working in technology teams to lead to higher performing organizations. Our mission is to cultivate and nurture the emerging market for VSM and to help the community learn, devise practices and standards and grow through their use. We launched last year and we're growing fast, and we would absolutely love you to get involved. Okay, so I lead the learning value stream for the VSM Consortium. We launched our foundation course last year, which is free to members. We are constantly iterating and improving and launching new products, so watch this space. In what spare time I have left, I foster the growth of high-performing teams and value streams through my company. I contribute editorial on DevOps for InfoQ and teach skiing for the British military. I fundamentally think of myself as a practitioner, a coach, and a learner. I've spent my career at the intersection of technology, business, and defense, designing operating models and building product development teams, which is another way of saying that I spend a lot of time worrying about flow and value and team dynamics. At the moment, I'm focused on what good security looks like at the intersection of DevOps and VSM, and also looking at how to lead VSM implementation. So let's get to it. Why explore value? The mindset and operational shift from delivery management to value stream management enables the creation of better customer awareness, better product awareness, and better experience awareness by connecting everything back to the customer, focusing on flow, and enabling value-centric conversations and decisions. But fundamentally, we've seen from our research that this is a steep change. We've been talking to CXOs and leaders at every level of your organizations and have learned that they consistently ask themselves what they can do to break through their friction, what they can do to break through like the conflict that they're seeing in their organization, and what are the first steps to start initiating change. This session is for leaders at every level of the organization who want to make the first steps. Stay tuned if you're interested in hearing about some typical problems and some practical solutions. I love this quote from Theodore Roosevelt. Nothing in the world is worth having or doing unless it means effort, pain, and difficulty. He's generally ranked as one of the greatest presidents in American history. I'm going to take a moment to talk about him because if you aren't American, you may well not know much about him. But he was a war hero, a businessman, and he remains the youngest US president to enter office in history. He established national parks to preserve natural resources while also fighting for unbiased competition and fairness for citizens. This is a man who lived life, faced tremendous personal adversity, and continually worked to transform everything around him for the better. I like this quote because I'm talking a lot about value, and this speaks to what we as humans value most, that which we've worked hard for. Jumping back to some of the challenges we're starting to see in the adoption of VSM. The challenge of articulating a product roadmap as a balance of technology and business need is set against the challenge of transformation and accelerated modernization. VSM isn't a panacea, and anything worth doing is going to be hard, but VSM does cut across all of these challenges. At the VSM conference last year, Helen Beale, the chair of the Value Stream Management Consortium, gave an overview of VSM and introduced an implementation roadmap. In this session, I'm going to dig a little deeper into how to practically get started on this journey. And I hope some of you have seen this roadmap before, but if not, don't worry about it because we're going to come back to it in some more detail. We'll cover the first few steps of this roadmap, and in the process, we're going to look at what is value and why is it so difficult to pin down, how to explore value with your organization to reach a common understanding and to build a powerful consensus and roadmap forwards. We'll look at some common challenges and how to lead your team through them. We'll quickly touch on data and insight-driven decision-making, as well as value-based feedback loops. And then we'll look at what you can do tomorrow to start exploring value and value realization in your team and organization. We're not going to spend a lot of time on basic definitions, and we're not going to go into the detail of value stream mapping. This session is going to be particularly useful for those of you who work in large enterprises or anywhere where there's still a separation between technology and the business. So, back to our implementation roadmap. As it says, get going from wherever you are today. Identify your value streams by identifying the products or services that you deliver. Then organize around them by finding the people accountable for each step in the value stream. Get everyone together to do your first value stream mapping exercise. And in all of our experience, this is generally really difficult to do, but incredibly worthwhile when you get started, because it's often the first time that everybody has truly taken time to understand all the steps in the flow to the customer. From here, you're in a really good position and you can start connecting the parts of your DevOps toolchain with the steps in your value stream map. This is the point where you'll start to get real data and insights into your value stream's flow. At this point, having connected the dots, you can start automating your value stream, which means that you can now inspect it, set goals, and continuously look for the next bottleneck to improve your stream. This is what's different about modern value stream management. We have the technology to do this. Finally, set or reset your long-term vision and goals. And I'd also like to say here that this is often the starting point, but by the time you've gone through a first iteration of this journey, that vision and your goals will likely have changed quite dramatically. Okay, so get going from where you are. This is really where you start to lead. You start exploring, and it's kind of that simple. It's the first step to reach a common understanding, and also the first in building consensus way before you start talking about a roadmap forwards. So, given that a value stream is anything that delivers a product or a service, or simply all of the steps that take an idea into the customer's hands, how is this an exploration? The first thing is to figure out where you are today, which means thinking about how your organization is delivering value today. The law of averages says it's highly likely that you have multiple customers, multiple products, multiple service lines. One example from my past that I hope is an extreme outlier, but I worked with one technical team where we started mapping their demand signals and discovered that they had 20 stakeholders called product owners who could all task them with work at any time. The team was obviously completely overwhelmed with unplanned work, prioritizing by noise, influence, and luck. But it was their reputation that was in the dirt rather than the people who were responsible for producing that dynamic. Once you've identified your customers, you can begin to talk about what value you provide to them. So, time we talk about value. What is it and why is it so difficult to pin down? This is a remarkably common challenge. Everyone broadly understands the concept of things having value or being useful, but people's perceptions differ. Value is in the eye of the beholder. The word value is a placeholder for something that is dynamic, contextual, and changes from product to product, service to service, idea to idea, and offer to offer. So it isn't really a thing, it's an agreement. And the further away you are from the end user, the more muddled this becomes, as every person interprets value at every step. If you ask 8 people in your team what's the most valuable thing to work on, you'll probably get 8 different answers. And this makes it very difficult to organize or to evolve. As I've said, a piece of work is a thing, an output can be valuable to an individual, or it can be valuable to a leader or to your boss. We in the VSM Consortium think the most elegant way to consider it is in whether it has value to the end customer of the organization or will directly lead to value creation for the true end customer. This is more simple to understand for product-driven organizations, fairly intuitive for service organizations, and increasingly difficult the more abstracted your part of the organization is from the true end user. So, identification. When you're trying to get started and identify your value streams, start with what you're shipping. What is your team or your department shipping to your customers? Again, this is easy if you're a startup or a small business that can't afford not to focus on the customer. It's much harder in organizations or large enterprises where what you're shipping might be compliance with a regulatory requirement, or it might be assurance that a product or process is within risk appetite, or potentially it's a feature, confirming that a feature is sufficiently high quality from a security perspective, especially where these thresholds aren't well defined. Thinking about value when you have a clear product is just easier than thinking about how to realize benefit from an abstract project or program benefit that are written into a business case or a project initiation document and managed by a part-time board that is abstracting you further and further away from your true customers. You might recognize this from teams you've worked with. A lot of activities going on, but the value being realized from that activity is not clearly bound to it. This speaks to the power of shifting from project to product, as Mick Kirsten's book. This is also where systems thinking becomes critical, since the more complicated the organization, the more complex the challenge of optimizing it and of optimizing value creation. Gains in efficiency can be matched by costs in friction and cognitive load, especially depending on the team topologies, which manifest, and so that efficiency can actually manifest as longer lead times, longer cycle times, and slower deployment frequency. It also means that everybody has just a slightly different view of what will lead to value for your end users. In VSM, we focus on the customer, not the executive or the shareholders, not the leader, not even the team. A core principle of VSM is that if we're successful delivering the right things to the customer at optimum speed, assuming we've got our cost models right, we will experience success. I'm going to quickly jump to this chart, which is one of the findings of our 2021 State of Value Stream Management report. We asked respondents about the metrics that their teams use to measure value and who they were reporting value to. Data like this demonstrates that the separation between business and digital elements is persistent, versus the essence of VSM, which is that the business and digital elements should be one team. Further than this, of the 53% of our respondents who said they do measure business results, only 7.9 were able to continuously and automatically connect flow metrics to business results. A quick point here is that our favoured response to this question is when teams stated that they don't report value because it's for their own decision making, proving that they're actually completely empowered with fully integrated customer feedback. Overall, though, the results showed us that business value currently trumps customer value, and that technology teams continue to be directed by the business and use financial metrics, revenue, sales, and profit margin, more than they use customer experience metrics. This means that currently, revenue and profit are considered more important than customer delight. So what does this mean for you as a leader? Well, it means you have to explore and negotiate value with everybody involved. And this can be really challenging, especially where fewer people have gone through the journey of Agile, DevOps, and VSM. It also means it's very likely that your organization structures are already fairly rigidly in place, with clear reporting lines, incentives, and operating models that aren't aligned to the actual value flowing through the system. Unless you're an executive with complete control over the org structure, you're going to need to build a case for change and to bag some successes early on. If you are an executive with complete control of the org structure, you're probably also so busy keeping the wheels on that you don't have time to re-architect and lead a transformation, especially without a clear value-based case for change. Value stream management platforms can help significantly here because they're agnostic about the org structure and about your tooling. This means that you can organize and reorganize your value streams completely virtually, which will then start to generate the data for the other more physical changes. About 5 years ago, I was working in one of the large investment banks with a genuinely excellent team of about 100 developers, engineers, and analysts. On the tech side, it felt like we were running hot. shipping a lot of features, but starting to show signs of slowing down and overheating. Deploying to production was a painful all-night affair because we hadn't yet reaped the benefits of the DevOps revolution. But the interesting thing that I want to pull out here is that overall, we were an excellent team and one of the highest performing in the organization. We had high trust from our lead stakeholders who were envisaging the new product that we were building, and everybody recognized the importance of continuous improvement. But the conversation about investing actual time and effort and putting that effort in the backlog was almost impossible. Fundamentally, I didn't have the data or the experience to sell the investment. I'm still really good friends with the director I was debating this with, a supremely smart guy. But because I failed to persuade him and didn't go after the data, we slowed his product time to market. And this is a really common scenario. Business and technology aren't speaking a common language. And getting around it starts with a couple of levels. So firstly, getting some data really helps. And secondly, if you're already established and agreed on what's valuable, then you have some direction to start exploring what data will be compelling to the stakeholders who are held accountable by blunt revenue or sales figures. Even if your organization is already sold on value stream management, it's likely that they're going to start thinking about local optimization initially. It's completely logical to prioritize your pain point first, even if that misses the bigger picture or doesn't consider your actual value flow. As a leader, this makes it difficult. So the best thing to do here is to make it a yes and conversation. So yes to the localization, yes to the local optimization, but also let's build on it. And in doing this, you start to build influence capital the same way that you build a muscle. So your first challenge right now is to grab a pencil and identify which friendly people you can get together for a zero pressure conversation about how the work you do creates value for the customer at the end of the chain. Okay, now that we've considered value and identified our value streams, the next step is to organize. This is where you sharpen your situational awareness. Find the people accountable for each step in the value stream. This is very high level. We haven't yet looked in detail at all the steps of the value stream, but we probably know enough to get started. But here's an immediate common problem. Who's accountable? This is part of the exploration. When you look at what's producing value for your end customers, look at the parts of the process you can see or that are obvious. Check if there are any less obvious connections that are inputting to these steps, and establish the owners of each step. The person accountable in practice might not, and frequently isn't, the person with the most senior title. That done, that said, we now want to start developing the situation. And the best way to do this is by talking to people. As a leader, if you're highly engaging, inquisitive, and trusting, if you ask questions and then stick about to work with your team and help discover the answers, you're going to make progress. One of my biggest lessons learned here is it's very easy to pick the wrong value stream to start with, but you only learn that by failing. And fundamentally, it doesn't matter because you're leading people on a journey and everybody's situational awareness is improving as you continue to explore. The only mistake is not starting. Here's an example from my past. A decade ago, I was working with an outstanding analyst helping me to map out the value chains, both physical and digital, of a soft commodities trader, a hedge fund. It was quite exciting at the time because this hedge fund had used weather data to predict a global cocoa shortage and then used futures to buy out the world's supply of chocolate, bringing the main guy in all of the newspapers. They gave him a Bond villain nickname, Choc Finger. I think it pushed the cost of Mars bar up by something like 10%. Point of the story is that even when you're a junior analyst working for a Bond villain and you pick the wrong value stream to start with, it's still fine. We learnt loads, and as we continued to develop the situation, we learnt more and more, eventually finding the parts of the value chain that it made the most sense to optimize. So my second challenge for you is to very quickly write down what you can do today to develop the situation. We need to wrap up now, so I'll end on another quote that I love. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need. This has a different meaning for team level leaders or middle management and for corporate level executives. But across all of them, exploring is not about going straight to the end point, it's about the journey. And in this case, there is no end point. It's a constant exploration. You might start thinking that the friction at one step in the process is the most critical thing to work on, that local optimization. But when you have situational awareness across the full system, the full value stream, that can then produce completely different priorities. Okay, so then to recap on our main takeaways. We're all at different start points, so just start. And don't worry about being right the first time. It really doesn't matter. Some of you have probably already started. Any of you that have written notes down on developing the situation, you have already started. So have a look at those next steps you've noted down, and however it goes, you're going to need to start to iterate and change course as you gain better and better situational awareness. Okay, so thank you very much for your time today. I wish you every success on your exploration. Good luck and speak soon. Thank you.